I want it back. Give it back. I want it back. Give it back. Now you know what I'm talking about.
Fox News alert late last night, U.S. and world powers agreeing to a nuclear deal with Iran.
But here's the question that everybody wants to know today. Can we trust them? Can we trust actually making a deal with them? Here to weigh in is national security analyst for the Clarion Project, Ryan Mauro. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks.
So there you go. Here's the question. Can we trust them?
Absolutely not. And that's why we've made our film, Iranium, which has been condemned by the Iranian regime, publicly available at clarionproject.org for everyone to see, which details the history, not just of the Iranian nuclear program, but the ideology that drives them. Because if you look at their constitution, the leadership is mandated to pursue the downfall of what they deem to be all non-Islamic governments around the world. So the second that they stop supporting terrorism, they're actually in breach of their own constitution.
Well, will they come along with this because money is in play? Are they able to sidestep ideology because they're going to get a boatload of cash out of this deal?
Well, the difference that you're seeing between Ahmadinejad and Rouhani is just in tactics. And those of us that have been monitoring Rouhani's language over the years, we knew this deal was coming because he's given public speeches that are publicly available where he has said what his goal is. He says, look, I'm very good at deceiving the West, using language and a calm demeanor in order to string along the West, in order to buy time for the nuclear program, and then eventually it'll advance to the point where the West has to just accept it as is. And there's one great quote from a 2005 speech he gave where he said, no, we're not lying, we're just not disclosing everything.
So my impression is that it's not just, of course, the United States, it's also Great Britain and Germany and France and Russia and China. My impression is one of the reasons the West went along with this is they see it as an option to war, and they look over at Iraq and Afghanistan and now Syria and Egypt and just the drama in the entire region, and they want to avoid armed conflict. Do you think that's why they went along with this?
I'm sure it's a factor, but I think over the long term, this actually makes war more likely. And that's because the so-called moderate president of Iran has a strategy that he's articulated that's basically one step back in order to later take 2 steps forward. And so they'll freeze major parts of their nuclear program, but then work on the other parts that are lagging behind. It's important to recognize that Iran's nuclear program is not just based in Iranian territory. Their allies in North Korea can work on the things like the warhead and other elements that have proven to be more problematic, and then once those problems are finished, then they can go back and work on these other elements.
You know that whole optimism thing you were hoping for this morning?
I just destroyed it.
It just collapsed.
Just kind of went downhill fast.
3.5 hours to rebuild it. Ryan Mauro, hey, if you want to get that film for free for a limited time, go to clarionproject.org. You can watch the entire history of the Iranian regime there.
Right. That's right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, it's another
historic mistake. That's what the leader of our closest Mideast ally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, calls the short-term nuclear deal the U.S. and 5 other world powers just signed with Iran. Turkey, Iraq, and Syria welcoming the deal, but even Saudi Arabia and other Gulf Arab states expressing concern, as are lawmakers on both sides here at home.
I don't buy into this, what I believe is a false choice between war or a policy of appeasement. I just don't. All we have to do is listen to our allies who are most proximate to the threat in the region, Israel, the Gulf Arab allies that we have, who have been saying all along that any kind of deal with this regime in Iran is not worth the paper it's written on.
And Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer saying, quote, I am disappointed by the terms of the agreement. A fairer agreement would have coupled a reduction in sanctions with a proportionate reduction in Iranian nuclear capability, end quote. Joining me now, Ryan Mauro, a national security analyst. Good to see you in studio, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so many people are saying, wow, is this a good thing for the United States? And you say?
Absolutely not, because all it does is delay some of Iran's nuclear advancements, and this is part of the makeover of the Iranian regime. They decided that they needed someone who was practiced in talking softer and in tricking the West. In fact, there is videotape out there that you can see at our website of the so-called moderate president of Iran bragging with a big smile about how he's been able to buy time from the nuclear program and trick the West into believing him, into being as if he's sincere.
It's interesting because Fox News confirmed earlier today that President Obama was having these secret talks going on and that he advised Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel of these talks in September. It was shortly thereafter that we saw Netanyahu come out and really express concern about what was going to go on. So my question to you is, could this deal have been put in place to stop some sort of an attack that Israel was potentially plotting to take care of their own vested interests in their own nation?
Well, you have to understand Iran's strategy. It's to take one step back in order to later take 2 steps forward. So at the current pace of the Iranian nuclear program, in about 6 months, according to the Israelis, the Iranians were about to reach critical capability when they can quickly produce a nuclear weapon. Now, if the program is stalled, does that time frame expand? Yes, it does. But in return, the Iranian regime is getting about $7 to $10 billion, which is money that's going to go towards the nuclear program later, is going to be used to stabilize the regime, and ultimately, it's going to be used to support terrorists that kill our soldiers.
All right. I want to bring your attention to something that President Obama said in a statement after this agreement was announced. He said, quote, "It would halt the progress of the Iranian nuclear program." Do you agree with that?
Temporarily, it does, but it depends on how you define nuclear program. There's certain elements that are going to be temporarily frozen for about 6 months. But the more problematic parts of the program, developing a warhead, the nuclear triggering mechanism, they're just going to have the North Koreans work on that. And they have scientists going back and forth between the 2 rogue countries. And so once they fix those problems, they'll then return to these parts of the program.
So people immediately went on social media after this announcement happened. Senator Lindsey Graham tweeted, of course, from South Carolina, "Unless the agreement requires dismantling of the Iranian centrifuges, we really haven't gained anything." You also had Congressman Tom Price of Georgia. White House deal with Iran raises serious concerns. White House has alienated allies. Much left to be seen whether we can trust what White House hopes to verify. I ask you this question, Ryan. Is the message now that this deal gives out to other international countries, like China, for example, that now that sanctions might be lessened or off the table, that they can now start dealing with Iran again because the U.S. thinks that they're okay?
Yes, but it also sends the signal that Iran is coming back, because as we speak, Iran is trying to make amends with Turkey, the Muslim Brotherhood, so that they can come back as the dominant regional power. And so this sends the signal that the U.S. has accepted Iran's nuclear program, which is what their objective was from the beginning. Before, the debate used to be, do you allow Iran to enrich uranium?
Right.
Now, it's accepted that you allow Iran to enrich to 3.5% of the uranium enrichment, which is about 7/10 of the way towards creating nuclear bomb fuel. And it's very important that we understand the ideology of the regime, and that's why we've made our documentary, Iranium, free for viewing at clarionproject.org so everyone can understand what's going on.
Ryan, thanks for your expertise.
Thank you.
Fox News alert for you right now.